thing. Is that on?
Is it,
You have to hold it fairly close to the mouth.
okay. Maybe I should just...
Yeah, me too. Okay.
How's that? Is that... Okay.
That sounds good.
That's good. Okay.
Okej, så välkomna allihopa. Jag heter Kristoffer Karlsson. Jag är författare och har idag det enorma nöjet att få göra en intervju med Marie Lu. Jag vet inte hur mycket ni har läst av Marie Lu, men jag har alltså precis läst klart Prodigy. Och jag är lite så att jag fortfarande skakar. I'm just saying I'm still shaking from having read Prodigy. Så det är väldigt, väldigt stort för mig att få sitta här. Så. Och jag tänker att vi gör så här att jag och Marie pratar i en kvart ungefär. Och vi gör det på engelska. Och sen så får ni möjlighet att komma in och ställa frågor till Marie. Och då om ni vill kan ni ställa dem på engelska. Om ni vill ställa dem på svenska så går det också bra. Då får vi försöka översätta till Marie bara. Så. Låter det bra? Okay. So I just said that I'm in love with your books.
Thank you.
Do you get that a lot these days?
I get more of it than I used to. So I'm very glad and grateful that people have been enjoying the stories.
Is this your first time in Sweden?
This is my first time in Sweden, yes. So I'm very excited to be here.
You are?
Yes, I am. I live in LA and we get no weather at all. It's every day is exactly the same. So it's nice to see some snow. I think I'm the only person in Stockholm excited about the snow. But I was really excited this morning.
There is a diagram of the seasons in Sweden where you have it's like a cake and you have a small piece of that cake is like summer and then the rest is just winter.
Right.
Like 4/5 of the cake is just winter. So we're pretty tired of it, I think. Anyway, let me the Legend Trilogy is taking over the world, it feels like. I mean, the books are bestsellers, and is it the first book being turned into a movie, or is it the whole series?
The whole series is optioned, so the hope is that they turn into movies.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so my fingers are crossed.
What's it like being in the middle of it all, when it just sort of takes off?
It's very thrilling and very humbling. And kind of confusing because I don't actually know a lot about what's going on sometimes, and I sort of rely on people to tell me what's going on because a lot of times I don't find out about things until it's public, and then people will tweet it at me, and that's when I find out, we have a director or something for the movie. So I don't know those things until other people find out.
I have had a similar experience where you're in the middle of just sort of thinking about the next story or the next series, and then on the outskirts of your sort of things are just taking off, and you're part of it, but you're not really aware of exactly what's going on.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you used to work at Disney, is that correct? Or
yes, I used to work at Disney Interactive Studios, which is the video game division of Disney.
Right, but then you are no longer you're a full-time writer, right?
Now I'm a full-time writer. I've been writing full-time for maybe 3 years now.
And what's an average day like for you now? Is this an average day for you being in Sweden?
No, this is definitely unusual for me. I think the average day is I tend to write in the mornings. I'm a morning person. So I tend to write between the hours of, say, 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. or something like that. And the rest of my time is usually just spent keeping up with emails and managing social things like Twitter and Tumblr and things like that. And then the other third, I'd say maybe like a third of the year is spent traveling. So it's I have either no interaction with people or complete interaction with people, and there's no in between.
That's the life of a writer, I guess, that you're sort of super isolated for a period of time, or it's just you and your story, and then there's like this, people looking at you in a very intense way.
Very accurate.
I assume people here have read Legend. Is that an accurate? Yes? Yes, okay. Do you have Instagram?
I don't actually.
You don't?
I do not have Instagram.
I think you should get it.
Yeah, I've heard that maybe like 500 times in the last 6 months from all my friends, so I think I should get it.
I have
I'm
to
gonna do that
tell
tonight.
you, this is a very asocial thing to do in an interview, but I have to show you, this is the hashtag June Paris, is that how you pronounce her name?
That's pretty close, yeah, a Paris.
Paris,
Very
okay.
soft I.
This is, sorry, this is very antisocial, but have you, look at this, this is the hashtag June Paris on Instagram. It has like over 4,000 uploads.
Wow.
Look at this.
That's
People are
incredible.
crazy.
Oh, thank you. I will sign up for it tonight.
Yeah, you have to. How does that, seeing these things, the way, because these are fans who are just crazy about the characters and the stories and your sort of universe, I guess. How does it feel to have that effect on people? That they take their time to do, like, you know, they make animations.
Oh, that's a really good one.
Isn't it? Sorry,
Wow,
once
sorry.
again, you can look it up.
Looking at very pretty artwork.
Yeah.
I'm just, wow, that is really nice. I'm just absolutely overwhelmed and thrilled by fan reactions because, you know, when I was a kid, I used to draw fan art and write fan fiction of my favorite series too, and it's really, really rewarding and humbling to see fans of the Legend series. So.
There's a user on Instagram who, when he or she, I don't know the gender, reached 1,500 followers, sort of exclaimed, "Yes, a perfect trial score."
That's really funny.
It's like,
I love
this
that.
is obsession. I was like, this is not something. I write crime fiction. This is not what you get from readers of crime fiction. Only young adult fiction readers go this nuts. And it must be fantastic. I mean, to have that effect on people's imaginations and to see how other people sort of see your characters.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's really fantastic to see that.
I'd like to ask you how you started out writing.
I've been writing since I was very, very young. I came over to the U.S. when I was 5 years old from China, and I started writing mostly to learn English because I didn't know the language and I had to learn. So my parents gave me the assignment to go to school every day and write down English words, and go home and look them up and memorize them. So I would put those into little paragraphs, little stories. And then eventually I realized that I just enjoyed the process of writing stories. So I wrote all sorts of little short stories up until maybe when I was 14 or 15. And that's when I learned that real people wrote books. I don't know why I always thought that books just came out of a factory. I mean, I guess they do come out of factories, but I just assumed that there weren't people attached to the story. They were just like brands. The names didn't mean anything. And it wasn't until I saw a newspaper article about a young girl who had gotten a book deal that I realized that real people write books. So I thought, this sounds like something I would really love to do with my life, is to write books. So I started writing more seriously then, and I wrote 4 unpublished manuscripts before I finally wrote Legend, over the course of like 10 years or something.
And when you wrote Legend, did you already have the 3 books, the plot thought out from the beginning, or did you sort of make it up as you went along?
No, I made it up as I went along.
You did?
I did.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually, even for Legend, the first draft, I didn't know what was going to happen. Like, there's this twist that happens halfway through Legend. I won't spoil it for just in case someone hasn't read Legend yet, but I didn't know that was going to happen until the instant that I wrote it. So, and then it ruined my plans for the rest of the book. So I had to go back and throw out the second half of the book and redo all of that. So I'm a very messy first draft writer. I don't know anything that's going to happen until I get there. I didn't even know it was going to be a trilogy. So I just knew that it was going to be some sort of series. Yeah, so I don't do a lot of planning in advance.
I don't either.
Yeah.
There's a joy in sort of making it up as you write. That's the creative
Right,
part.
it's part of the creative
It's
process.
really, because if you know everything that's going to happen, it's sort of useless to me to write it because there's no joy for me in finding
It
out.
kind of takes away some of the fun from
Yeah,
the writing, right?
yeah, yeah. Okay, so I mean, as I've understood it, June was supposed to be a boy. Is that correct?
She originally started off as a boy, mainly because the story was directly based off of Les Miserables. And I genuinely thought that it was going to be teenage Jean Valjean, the criminal, versus teenage Javert. So I saw her as a boy, and I was pitching this story to my fiance, who was the only person that knew about the story at the time, and he was the one who ended up telling me that he didn't really like the idea of them both being boys, and he wanted one of them to be a girl, and he was like, then I would read it. So I decided to make her a girl, and it really immediately balanced the story out for me. I like the idea of the contrast between the two, which really emphasized the difference between them.
Right. Would there still have been a romantic relationship between Boy June and Boy Day? Or
I think there could have been. Yeah, I don't think I would have held that against them. I think that could have worked out too in the long run.
okay. Do you have a favorite character in the series?
Aside from Day and June, I think my favorite character is Kaede, who is the bartender in the first book, and she ends up being a fighter pilot. You later find out. She was sort of my wish fulfillment character, because when I was a kid, I wanted to be a fighter pilot. I thought that was the coolest job, and I told my mom that I wanted to be a fighter pilot. And she said that I couldn't be a fighter pilot because I have bad eyesight. So I just decided to write a character who was a fighter pilot instead. So she's my wish fulfillment character.
Do you have a character that you hate in the series?
That I hate to write, or that
yeah,
just,
that you hate. No, that you hate as a
person.
Yeah.
I think Commander Jameson is a pretty bad person. I don't think she has any redeemable qualities. I would really hate her if she was a real person. Yeah, I think she's probably the one character I like the least out of everybody.
I see. I agree. I think I hate Commander
She's not very
Jameson.
nice,
She's
no.
very, very bad. I don't like her. Yeah. Okay, so should we maybe pass out the microphone to the audience? Should we start doing that? Anybody have a question they want to ask Marie? Yes, we have a question here. Let's see. Should we? Okay. So, but there's a thingy here. Could you? Okay. You yeah. Okay.
Yes, hello. I really like the relationship between Yoon and her brother. How do you pronounce his name?
I pronounce it Mateus.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one, so...
Yes,
yeah.
it is. And I just wonder, did you get some inspiration from something to write about it? For I have my own brothers, and I can really relate to it.
That's a great question. I have no siblings, so I'm an only child. And I remember when I was a kid, I always begged my mom for an older brother, which obviously she can't give me because she already had me. So I really wanted an older brother because I always thought that was nice to have this sort of protective older figure to help look out for you. And then I can follow him around and imitate him. So June, I kind of gave that aspect of my personality to June. I wanted her to have this sort of figure that she could really count on, who was basically her father figure. And when she loses him, that gives her the drive to do everything that she needs to do. So that's where he came from.
All right, thank you.
Hi, I'm wondering, are you planning on writing a sequel or prequel in the same world?
Sequel to Prodigy, you mean, or?
Yes.
It's a trilogy, so the last book is Champion. You mean after Champion?
Yes, I mean a spin-off
After Champion.
series.
As of now, there's no plans for a follow-up to it, but I mean, I don't know what will happen in the future, so we'll see what happens. But for now, I think I've left the Legend world behind. I think it'll end completely with Champion.
Do you have any other stories planned?
I do. I have a new series that's coming out. In the US, it comes out on October 7th of this year. And it's called The Young Elites. And this one is a fantasy, young adult fantasy. And it's set in this alternate fantasy version of Renaissance Italy. And it's about what happens when the equivalent of the Black Death sweeps through this country. And the people who survive, some of the people come out of the plague with superpowers. And no one really knows what to make of this weird new magic that's hit the world, so they burn them at the stake, because that's what you do to people you don't understand, right? So they hate them for reasons they don't understand. They think they have demonic magic. And so to protect themselves, these people band together And the story follows a girl named Adelina, who is essentially a teen female version of Magneto from X-Men. She starts off the story as a good person and ends up a villain. And I really wanted to chronicle sort of the fall of somebody into the dark side. So whereas, Day is the boy who walks in the light, she very much walks in the darkness, and she's not a very nice girl. So that's what that story is about. It's very much X-Men meets Assassin's Creed.
When will we be able to read it?
It comes out in the States on October 7th, so I'm not sure about Sweden, but I hope it'll come out here too.
So do we.
First of all, I think the ending of Champion was really good. And it kind of ruined me, but still made me happy. And how does it feel to be compared with like big franchise like the Hunger Games?
Oh, it's absolutely overwhelming, because I'm a big Hunger Games fan. I love the series and I love the movies. I think they're really, really good. And it's just an absolute privilege to be in the same category as the Hunger Games.
Hi, this is kind of nervous. Oh, I'm kind of nervous.
Oh, it's okay. Don't be.
So my question to you is, what do you think about fan fiction in general? And yeah, that is my question.
I love fan fiction. I used to write fan fiction when I was young, so I think it's great. I think it's a great
What did you
expression.
write?
I wrote Harry Potter fan fiction.
So did I.
Not very good Harry Potter fan fiction, by the way, so I'm glad that you guys won't read it. I don't think it's online anymore. And even if it was, you wouldn't know it's by me.
Did you write it? So, did you write it in your own name?
No.
You did? Oh.
No, I didn't. Sorry. So I will never tell you
Right.
what
Right.
my name
Damn.
was.
Okay.
I wrote some video game fan fiction. I think I wrote a Sonic the Hedgehog fan fiction when I was 9 or 10. It was a story about Sonic running through the forest and a tree fell on him, and so he couldn't run anymore, and he had to find his inner strength. That was the
It
story.
sounds like a lovely
Very
story.
morbid. Just like dark things, I guess.
But you don't post fan fiction of your books?
No, I don't post fan fiction of mine, and I haven't read any of fan fiction that others have posted of Legend, but I think it's really, really cool, and I would be really flattered if people were writing it.
No matter what they write?
I don't think I have any preference. People can write whatever they want. I know the kind of things that get written in fan fiction, so
What is that?
You don't want to
Yeah.
know.
I don't think I can say it in a public forum.
More questions?
Firstly, I also read all the 3 books, and they are super.
Thank you.
And I would like to ask, do you have any author idols who you look up to from like old or new, or do you have any idols?
Yes, I have tons and tons of idols. I'm, of course, a huge fan of J.K. Rowling. I'm pretty sure I would faint if I ever met her. She's one of those people that I just don't think I can have a conversation with. Because she doesn't seem like a person to me. She's like a magician or something. I am a huge fan of George R. R. Martin. I did actually meet him at Comic-Con in San Diego, and I hope I sounded like a normal person to him, because I don't remember a thing that I said. When I was really little, I was a big fan of Brian Jakes, who wrote the Redwall series. It was my favorite children's series, and he's unfortunately since passed away, and I always wish that I could have met him before he passed away, because I absolutely loved his books. They were the first fantasy books I ever read, and it kind of led me on to reading more fantasy. So, yeah, I could go on and on and on about authors, so.
Anybody else? Questions?
I have another one.
You told us you were from China originally, and I read Legend today again, and I noticed some names that don't sound very English American. Are they from China or from China origin?
I think there's one name that's actually Japanese, which is Kaede, and Kaede is a Japanese name. Day, his middle name, so Day's real name is Daniel Alton Wing, and Alton is the Mongolian word for golden. So it kind of calls to his Mongolian half of his heritage. So all of his siblings have Mongolian middle names. So Eden has the middle name Batar, which means, what does it mean? I think it means king or prince or something like that. And his brother's middle name, Shirin, is also a Mongolian word for leader, I think.
Yes, all your characters have such a mixture of names and appearances. It feels very American. Is that also intentional?
Thank you. I don't know if I did it consciously, but I wanted to make sure that the world had a good mix of ethnicity and diversity and sexuality, genders. And because I feel like that's what, at least that's my impression of the US is. It's just this giant melting pot of people, especially in Los Angeles, where you have minorities from basically every place in the world. So I wanted to at least get that across, because I feel like, 130 years in the future, the people will be even more mixed than they are now. So.
Does anyone else have a question?
Do you watch booktubers on YouTube? Do you watch any YouTube videos?
No, I don't think I do. But I'm curious now.
Yeah, you should definitely check them out, because I know that they have reviewed a lot of your books, Legend, Prodigy, and Champion. So
Oh, wonderful.
you should check them out.
I will.
And anyone have a last question? Okay, we can take 3 more questions. Okay.
How did you think when you came up with the plot and Day's trial score?
How did I come up with that? Well, the trials themselves came about because in the US we have to take this test to get into college called the SATs. And I don't know if there's an equivalent standardized test that you have to take in Sweden, but for people in the US, this is a terrifying test to take, because at the time it feels like life or death, where if you don't get a good score on this test, you're just not going to get into the college that you want to get into, or get into college at all. So I remember at the time feeling absolutely terrified of this test. Like, my life was going to be over if I did not get a good score on this test. So that's basically what the trials are. They are SATs on steroids. They're like the extreme version of the SATs, where if you don't do well on it, you actually will die. So that's where it came from. And I wanted Day to be somebody who was sort of a victim of that system, where he was much smarter than the test made him out to be, which I think is actually very true to real life, because I think a lot of people are really smart and just not very good at taking standardized tests.
I have a question about when you wrote the books. There is a sort of a political difference between the two American nations, and did you have a thought about two extreme difference, or what did you think when you imagined the countries and their political?
That's a great question too, where the inspiration for splitting the U.S. into these two very extreme versions of the country came about because I was writing the story in 2009, and that was when in America we had just elected Obama, and our two political parties, the Democrats and Republicans, absolutely hated each other. I mean, to a point where I had never seen before in the country. There were people breaking the glass doors of Democratic offices. We had one senator who was shot, and it was just got to the point where it was feeling very, very uncomfortable. I had never seen that sort of violence against politicians in the U.S. So it got me thinking of what it would be like if I just pushed the ideologies of these two parties to the extreme and made them two different countries, literally. So that's where that idea came from. And the Republic and the colonies essentially represent each of our parties, just extremely exaggerated.
Do you have any advices for teenagers who want to become writers?
Yeah, I do, because that was when I started writing more seriously. And I think the biggest piece of advice I can give is to not be afraid to write something bad. I think, when we first start off as writers, at least I was so focused on trying to write something amazing right out of the gate that I would write 50 pages and then I would stop and then I would go back and try to make it perfect instead of pushing myself to go forward with the story. And I think one of the most important things an aspiring writer can do is to finish a story first. It doesn't have to be good. It just has to be done. And I think finishing something as long as a novel is a huge step for an aspiring writer. Because I feel like once you get the words down on the paper, even if they're really bad words, you can then have something to work with. You can go back and rip things out and put things in and get better that way. Because I feel like if you don't get all of the bad words out of your system, you're never going to get to the point where you can write good words. So, it took me 4 tries before I got to writing something that was anywhere remotely able to be published. And actually, that's a really good question for you, too, about advice for writers.
Oh, okay. I have 2 microphones. Okay. No, I think Marie's advice is great. I mean, to be able to work with a story, you have to have a story. I think I wrote 12. You said 4 tries. I was like, that's low. You must have been really good. I sucked.
Very long tries.
Long tries. Okay. Yeah. No, I think your advice is great. I mean, to finish a story is the first step towards actually having a finished story. I always felt that a first draft of a story is just the beginning. The real work is to actually polish it and, like you said, take bits out and put pieces in and see, oh, this is really cool. I could use this, and I could make this connection. Yeah. So I think Marie's advice is actually great.
So, NaNoWriMo, is that a good thing to start with? If you want to write a novel from start to finish?
I think it's a good exercise. NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month. It's November, and you try to write 50,000 words in 30 days, which I have never done successfully. Oh, okay, that's a lie. I did it once last year, but I had to throw it all away. So it actually didn't work for me. But I think it's a great exercise in learning that you're capable of writing that much in a set amount of time, which I think is a very important thing to know if you want to be a full-time writer.
Can I ask a question? I'm looking at the owner of the shop because...
I just work here.
You just work here? Oh, okay, sorry. When you write, when you're in a very active phase of writing, are you a strange person to be around? That's a leading question.
I'm always a strange person to be around. How strange are we talking here? I do. I get into the crazy writer phase, where you don't see anyone for a week, and I just start looking like a crazy writer. Like, my hair is insane, there's stuff in it, I don't know where it came from, and, I'm wearing my bathrobe all day, and I don't know what to say to people who come to the door, the mailman or the people delivering things. I just start having conversations with them because I'm like, I haven't talked to a person in a week. You're my only contact. So, I get a little bit weird sometimes if I don't talk to people for a while. I don't know, do you get weird?
Yeah. I don't want to talk about it. But it's just that when you write, you're not really there when you interact with somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like you're slightly off key because your mind is, at least to a certain extent, always in the story or in the universe.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that when you sort of build this whole world that you have done. I mean, I'm so lazy. I write present day. I'm too lazy to create my own world.
I wouldn't call that lazy. That requires a lot of research for you to make it accurate.
No.
That's why I write fantasy, so I can make up
I just
stuff.
make it up. I think this sounds right. It's probably like this. I make some research. No, but when you are in that universe, how real does that feel to you? Because as a reader, you feel that it's so real. It's like it's so well constructed and so alive. It's so well thought through.
Thank you. Before I start writing a story, I have to actually physically draw my characters and the world out. It's how I think. I just think very visually, so I have to be able to see it first before I'm able to visualize the world correctly. So that helps a little bit, and I do write long sort of world-building Bibles before I start. Details like how are funerals done in the Republic, and what kind of money do people use, and how do they dress, things like that. Sort of like the basic foundations of what I know need to be in the story in order for me to tell the plot. And then as I write the first draft, I sort of discover world building things as I go. So then I'll start layering it in. So my final drafts are actually about twice as long as the first drafts. So I sort of go backwards. I don't really cut a lot of, I cut a lot of stuff out, but I put more stuff in. So I have very, very short first drafts because of that. And it's true, like when you're in that writing mode, you forget about everything else around you to the point where, like people come up to me, and if they interrupt me, I just have this sort of dazed, far away look in my eyes where they know I'm just not really focusing on them and just still in the world. So.
Is there time for one more question? Or do you want to call it and start the signing?
If there's only one more question, go right ahead.
I was very close to crying several times as I read both Legend and Prodigy. Do you cry when you write certain scenes?
I did not cry when writing Legend or Prodigy, but I did cry a little bit at the end of Champion. Mostly I think because the story was ending, and I felt like I had gone through this thing with my characters. For the most part, I think I'm okay with torturing them. I don't feel too much. I don't know what that says about me.
I don't either. Okay, so should we call it off and then we'll start? So there are books here. Marie will be sitting here signing books for you. I'll get the hell out of the way. So you can take pictures, I guess, if you if you want to take your picture with Marie. And thank you all for coming and for having such great questions. Made my work a lot easier. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you.